All right, it's December 7th, 2021, 7:31 p.m. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Members present: Doug Roberts, John Tehan, Rebecca Sinowski, and we'll seat Lori Semperbond for Joe Hall. All right, let's see. No applications to be received, no public hearings tonight. Item E, new business, bond policy discussion.
So I put this on here at the request of Lori. So with that, I'll kick it over to her. And I can fill in the gaps.
Okay. I've been the treasurer for the last year and a half, and one of the things I deal with is, the bond funds when they come in to the town. And we, in the past 10 years, have generally asked people to provide a cash bond for either a driveway bond or a lawn bond. And that's so that if they don't finish the work, then like the driveway apron, the town would go in and finish it to tie it in with the road. And generally these bonds are $1,000 or $2,000. Is that correct, Mike?
We try to tie them to based on the size of the property, but yeah, small amounts.
Yeah. And we have some bonds that have been outstanding for a while. If you remember a while back, we refunded Circle Associates an amount that had been sitting, and we didn't have the documentation to know what it was for, and so we refunded that. But basically it seems to work pretty well to ask people to provide a bond, and I think then there's the motivation for them to finish whatever it is that we need to have them finish, for their property as they're building a property. And for larger jobs like Love's, we've accepted a bond insurance. I'm not sure how you would say that, but it's a bond insurance policy. And for Love's, for example, they provided that, and that's been done in the past, and that's fine. But recently one went through that was just a small property with bond insurance. And as treasurer, I see that as an issue, because if somebody doesn't finish their driveway, and a year and a half from now they could cancel that insurance and we really wouldn't have any recourse. But with the cash bond, we have the money and they're motivated to finish, because when they finish, then they get that money back. So I think we need some kind of a policy, because Mike said that we really didn't. We talked about this in the past. I don't know if it's a policy or if it's a recommendation, or I'm not sure what would need to happen, but unless a property is, like Love's, a large, expensive property, I think we should require folks to give a cash bond. And that's just from my experience as the treasurer for the town, and making it reasonable for the homeowners. They get their money back as soon as they, provide the proof to Mike that they have done the work. And it just gives us, I think, a little more leverage over a property than we would if it were just a bond. And I'm not sure what the cutoff would be for how expensive when you allow them to do a policy rather than the bond. But for most people, for a house, it would be a cash bond of $1,000, $2,000, whatever.
Mike, what are neighboring towns doing?
This is all over the place. The statute is very clear that bonds can be provided to the satisfaction of the commission, which means that you guys can develop a policy. I think that if we created a bond policy that was outside of the zoning regs, I think that would be fine. We just have to create something so that projects like Love's, who are putting up large amounts of money, have the ability to do something like a line of credit, letter of credit, and then the smaller properties can basically put up something that's cash. But the statutes are pretty clear that the Planning and Zoning Commission has the authority to determine what qualifies as an adequate bond. So you have that flexibility.
Do we do a consistent amount now? Say somebody's building a house, is it consistent?
So we really don't have any policies related to bonding. So what we do is we typically say if they're trying to get a CO now and they don't have grass, we'll get a quote, have them provide us a quote from the landscaper that they're engaged with, and we set the bond amount based on that. Because we don't have a policy, and staff, I can't inflate the costs. It's a lot of homeowners don't want to write a check for $5,000 or $6,000 when they just, bought a new house. But I think if we created a policy for the smaller stuff, we'd say that needs to be provided cash, and that anything outside of that or anything related to a commercial project would be at the satisfaction of the commission. And so if someone came in and for whatever reason was in a small residential property and they didn't want to give a cash bond, well, they could come to you and they could present why it's okay. And we could, have someone like an attorney or finance review it to make sure we're not boxed in.
But over the past 10 years, the town has pretty consistently requested cash bonds from all, small property builders like homes. And recently one went through that wasn't, and it concerned me as the treasurer because
How did it go through? Who let it go through?
I'll let Mike answer that.
Well, it comes through our office. And so when we look at it, we're verifying that it's providing a surety in the amount as specified, but I don't have anything that says these types are okay and these types are not okay. So I don't have something that I can go back to them and say, we don't accept this type. So we basically have to take what they're going to get. So I think the whole purpose of this is to create a foundation of what our expectations are so that we're not getting bonds that staff isn't comfortable with as far as format.
Do you have another town that has a policy that you would say is decent?
Well, bonds are something that so many towns just can't seem to get right as far as policies, procedures. But I think that we could pull together a clear and concise policy for you guys to review. Yeah.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. I just want to make sure whatever we do, and this is just my opinion, there's obviously other opinions on the commission. I don't want to do things that are onerous to property owners, especially nothing too large.
Well, Ralph, I mean, Walter, hi, Ralph, he's there.
Hi, Larry.
Basically, we have in the finance office, we have two people who served as treasurer for quite a few years, Tish and Donna. And they said we really have done nothing but cash bonds for about 10 years. But again, since there's not really a policy, it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult to say no, but the finance office feels pretty strongly that the cash bond makes more sense for the smaller properties. And again, Mike's in a position where we don't have a policy, so it's kind of difficult, but the great majority of people have provided the cash bond, and that seems to work well. It's not a huge amount of money. You're building a house. It's a pretty small number compared to building the house. I think you're right, Walter. We want to be fair to the homeowners, but I think we also need to make it reasonable for the town as far as consistency and so that the zoning agent knows what's expected and what should happen.
Yes, John.
Hey, Mike, do you know if do we have any data on what's the average cost for one of these bonds?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't have any data. We haven't done a ton of volume since I've been here, but I would say for a residential property, the thing that we see is that the grass is not established when they need to get the CO. So from erosion and sedimentation control, we want to basically take the bond, and then we tell them when the grass has been mowed twice, we do an inspection and we release it. You're talking a couple $1,000, more than 1,000, but less than 5. And the size of the properties in Willington vary. So, properties that are 5 acres are going to have a bigger bond than properties that are 1.
Well, Mike, in my year and a half, I've never seen a bond that was different from 2,000 or 1,000.
And I think that there has been a sort of internal office understanding of, we always take this much money, but no real math to get there. Some towns basically say, okay, we're going to figure that, you have rough costs of per square foot of if we have topsoil, if we have seed or this or that, and they kind of back into the number. Some towns pay their consulting engineer to develop a bond amount, but then we pay a couple $100 to get a bond estimate, and it's much easier to do a flat amount.
I think keeping it simple is probably the best way to go. If we did just a flat amount that, it wouldn't be onerous, like we said, but it would be enough that they'd certainly want to get it back. I think that's probably our best bet. Maybe we also look at bond insurance is only good on commercial properties or something along those lines, and require cash bond on residential. That's just throwing that out there.
That makes sense. And unless, I don't know, Mike, if you've seen really large properties where they have, a lawn on 5 acres or something. I mean, I don't know if it's worth having a little bit of a step system, but I would say most homes most people don't want to mow 5 acres, so they have trees, and then they have a small part that's, so I don't know that you've seen anything that's a whole lot different, even with bigger homes or smaller homes. I mean, lawns are,
Yeah, I think we can pull together a policy that keeps things simple for the small properties, so we can accept the money quickly and release the money quickly, and then provide flexibility for the larger bond amounts because they're putting up a lot more money.
And is that always just commercial?
No, I'm thinking,
Like a development?
based on the size of the bond, if we get a big subdivision
Oh.
for residential, we could get a bond that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they're not going to put that up cash. So we can look at that based on the amount versus the property use.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
All right, any other thoughts on it from any other commissioners?
So Mike, you'll work on putting something together.
Yep, I'll put together a draft policy.
All right. Thank you. And thanks everyone for considering.
All right, item B, Affordable Housing Plan Survey.
So we figured it would be easier to just have the commission review it together rather than trying to send it out. So what I can do is, was provided with the agenda. I can go through it. I can share my screen if we just want to go through the questions. If you have any questions of me, we can talk about it. And if you're good with it, we will start sharing it publicly.
Can we just ask that anybody who's not speaking mute themselves, just because I'm hearing a lot of background noise, and then if you need to speak, you can unmute. Thank you.
All right, give me 1 second here. So let me see if I can make this a little bigger.
Are you planning on putting this out on the town Facebook page, Mike?
I'll defer a little bit to Erica and what she's willing to share, but if she's willing and we don't have a policy for what goes out there, then I would say we'll share it anywhere we can get engagement. I think that I can probably ask Economic Development Commission to share it through their Facebook page, because we really want to get to the people that are not traditionally engaged by our process.
Right.
So a lot of these questions are asked in a way that will allow us to get data that we can use. So they may seem a little bit funky, but just, quickly, we're providing them with a very, again, concise explanation of what affordable housing means, trying very hard to not convey sentiments or bias or anything other than this is exactly what it is. We're asking them about their relationship to the town, asking if they feel that housing options currently available fit existing residents' needs. And then again, if the housing stock satisfies future residents' needs. So again, if there was a difference in these questions, you'd think about either a young population coming in or older population downsizing and wanting to age in place. They might feel that housing stock isn't adequate based on some of that. Gauging their sense of the affordable housing based on their community, basically the community's impressions. How important is it to Willington's longevity? Do you think it's important? Or do you think it doesn't really matter? And this is an important way for us to gauge whether or not people generally are going to be sort of this understanding of the fact that this is something that Willington should move on. We're also asking them what they consider to be affordable or attainable. Again, gauging their thoughts on what do they think. Do they think that 2,500 is affordable, or do they think that 750 is affordable? That will help us, again, gain their impressions on affordable housing, housing prices, housing stock. Willington was one of the towns that saw a fairly substantial increase in housing sale prices during COVID. So, they may have a lot of thoughts about the cost of housing, which is how we get into this question about, do they have concerns about the overall costs of home ownership? And then, do you think that increased housing options will improve the town, negatively impact the town, or not have much effect? And again, so basically, once we're good with this is going to go into SurveyMonkey, and we'll create those questions so they can sort of have those scales. But I wanted you to be able to look at them. We're asking them their impressions on what types of housing units are most needed. They want more young professionals, UConn students, in-town workers, young families. They don't believe we need it, or they have other thoughts. And then we have seniors as well. Question 9 gets into the types of affordable housing. So this is the physical construction. All of the types that are listed here are eligible. You can have affordable housing units in pretty much any style house. So we want to see, do they have a preference of what they think? Are there certain housing types? Do they think we need apartments, or we have enough of them? Do we need single family? So again, trying to gauge if there's a specific preference that would be supported by the community, because the law doesn't care what type of housing unit, as long as it's deed restricted as affordable. It can be a condo, it can be a townhouse, it can be a single family detached. And then we're going to ask them if they have any thoughts on where this is best suited. Do they think it should be in South Willington? Do they think it should be in areas closest to UConn, spread across town? We're now asking them to rank their opinion of what obstacles they think present an issue for this type of development. Is it local attitudes? Is it our regulations, the housing market, Willington, lack of sewers, obviously, or other things? So we want to understand what their impressions are and what they see as the biggest stumbling block. And then we're just asking them what their household situation is related to their rent or own, income limits, and age. And then we give them an opportunity to share anything they want with us and include their information if they want to be kept in the loop on the status of the plan. We'll have that, and we can, basically set up a blast where we can let them know what we're doing. Trying to keep it short enough that it doesn't take a long time, because people don't want to spend more than a few minutes. So we try to keep it concise.
Do you have any influence over the questions? Can you change the wording of any questions, or are these sort of prescribed by someone else?
we've used these on a number of other plans and it's sort of, we've morphed them. But yeah, we can, if you have things you'd like to change, we can change them.
My only thought, if you can go back to the document, I think it was question, I don't know, 7 or 8, where it asked about what do you think is affordable? I think,
This one, 5?
yeah, go back to, yes. What do you consider to be affordable or attainable in Willington? I am wondering, I mean, if it's me, I'm taking a survey, I'm gonna say 750 all the time. But if the question said, how much do I expect to pay for rent in Willington? That would probably get a different answer. And I'm wondering, in the same way for housing, not so much what do I want to, what do you think is affordable? Well, of course, I think 750 a month is affordable. It's affordable for everybody, whether you make, 40,000 a year or 300,000 a year. 750 a month is more affordable than a higher amount. But I'm wondering, what is the expectation that people want to pay? I'm not thinking about different ways of getting to the same answer.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We're trying to, we have in there in caps, what do you consider to be affordable? But your point is well taken. Why would anybody say that $1,500 a month is affordable when they have an option for $750?
Exactly, right. No, who would pick that? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe they make 100 million a year, but they're not going to say that. They're going to say 750 is affordable.
I'm wondering if maybe what we do is just split this into 2 questions, rent and own, and ask them to enter a dollar amount out of the blue. You're muted. He's still muted.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Mike.
Andy, did you hear me?
Yeah. But I mean, we do this at Travelers. You get more answers from check boxes than you do from narratives. People are not going to write stuff in if they don't have to. They're going to go through multiple choice, pick something. If they got to write something, most people won't. Some will. But if you want a greater amount of information, go with check boxes that we're going to get you what you want.
Okay, we can tweak that to allow a more.
Don't do it because I said it.
Well, no, I think it's a good point. We need to modify the way it's set up to sort of encourage more honesty. Not that they wouldn't be honest, but I think you're right. We're going to push them to say, well, why would I spend an extra $1,500 a month just because everybody's going to choose the cheapest. And you guys are more educated on this subject than a lot of people who will take it, perhaps. So we can tweak that language.
And I think anybody being honest, if the question asked, what would you rather live in, the $750 a month apartment or the $1,500 a month, when I think we know what the answer might be.
Yeah.
There's a lot more things that people consider when they're looking for an apartment other than just what it costs.
Right.
Right, but when the government's asking you, I think it flavors the survey a little. That if it was just you and me talking, we'd probably have a different way of saying than this is we're the government in this place. In this case, we're asking something, so kind of flavors the answers. I think. What do I know? I show up every couple of months and open my big mouth.
Well, I am glad to see you here, Andy.
I'm glad to be here. I'm really trying to make a much more concentrated effort.
Good.
And be here on time. It's important to me. Just a lot of things have been happening and I haven't done a good job of that.
Well, the more input we get on these things too, the better, in different opinions and so forth. So it's good to see you here.
And Andy, just to back up your statement, on the flip side, if I'm somebody that's living here and I think we don't want affordable housing, we don't want anybody, tinfoil hat wearing.
You throw it as high as you could possibly go if you were going to do that,
Yep.
Mike.
Exactly. So
Right.
so you could skew it either way.
But I'm just thinking about if someone said, what would I expect to pay for affordable housing? If you ask me that question, I sort of have I paint a little picture of a fairly stark, furnished, not the most customizable something. And I'd say, well, in that, in Willington, Connecticut, I know what rents are. I know UConn, they want $1,500 for a 1-bedroom. So maybe 1,250, maybe 1,000, I don't know. If I say, what do I want to pay? What do I think is affordable? Well, I think the stuff at UConn is way overpriced. What I think is affordable is much less. But what I expect to pay might be more accurate to say what would I be willing to pay? Or I don't know, I don't think that's quite the way to say it. But what would I expect to pay in Willington? Because if you meet people's expectations, you're usually okay.
Well, when you
Why
ask
not
a
ask?
question too, what do you think an apartment should cost? What is it? Is it a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom,
I know, right,
3-bedroom? Is it a house? Is it?
This is a hell of a rabbit hole. Like I said,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, well, what do you
Big.
expect? What are you looking to gain from this, Mike, when you get this answer? So is someone going to come in and build $300,000 houses and nice apartments, or no?
So the goal here is to see if, because we know, there's a formula, and for what qualifies as affordable in Willington, it's 30% of 80% of area median income. So there's a number, and it's probably in the, $1,200 to $1,500 a month range that would qualify a unit to be affordable. What we want to know is, does the community as a whole look at affordable housing as things that cost $700 a month and sort of think that it's this very, very, very cheap, low cost? Or do they think that, everybody here is deep pockets, so they think 2,500 is what should qualify as affordable? So we're trying to get a sense of what they think is that where that reasonable line is.
So if it's based on percentage of income, would you rephrase the question based on percentage of income? So like, depending, regardless of what I make, what do I consider to be affordable based on my income? Is it 20%, 40%?
Yeah, I think that it would be hard. I mean, there's a sliding scale. So for deed restricted affordable, at that calculation, the size of the family changes the size of changes the total cost. So if you have a larger family, your budget per month can be higher. So I don't know how to make a scale, but I hear what you're saying, and I agree.
we kind of already
Mike,
know the answer, right? If you go 80% of the medium income, and then it's 30% of that, kind of know what the price should be.
Mm.
To classify as affordable anyway.
Mike, how are you planning to get this out, I guess, to the general public? Because not everybody goes on to the town pages. I didn't know if there was any other means of getting this out to people, or if this is going to be just paper document that someone scans and downloads, or is this like a Google form where they just check and it puts you in a spreadsheet?
Yep. So it'll be like SurveyMonkey, so they'll take it on their phone or whatever. So we'll share it. We usually check to see, in some cases, how they gain the information. They can share it or not, like with the schools, town website. There's an email distribution list that the town hall has, so we can blast it out there. We can probably share it on Facebook through a couple of the different town pages. We'll probably coordinate with Jenny to get some paper copies to the senior center and give them the opportunity to take it in paper if they would prefer. Trying to think of where else we would probably put this. School, senior center, town website, Facebook, library. So we'll basically, any place we can post a link, we'd be happy to share it out to.
Get it out to the Chronicle, get an article out.
How about hey, Mike, how about if you get an article to the Chronicle?
We could do that. And actually, I don't think the timing will work for the Willington Wire, but yeah, we probably can do that. I think we've got the legal budget. Shouldn't be an issue.
But can we also send it out to anybody who signed up for Willington emails?
Yep. We did that for the ARPA survey, I believe.
Mike, what about putting, say, an advertisement on any community bulletin boards? Is there one at the library? You can put a QR code on it that would take you right to the survey.
Yeah. We can, I forget who's over there, but we can basically create like a one pager, you know, or like a half a pager that just says kind of what we're doing, link to the survey. We can use a link shortener so that people can type it in, but we can hit it with a QR code. That shouldn't be a big deal.
Great.
So other than this question 5, which we will rework in the interest of wanting to get this out, is there any other changes that you'd like for us to make? Are you good if we tweak this based on your thoughts and start advertising it?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, that'd be okay.
All right. And if anybody has any other thoughts about like where you want to share it out, just let me know and we'll do that. And I'll make sure that it's live.
Well, the key is obviously to get it to as many people as possible if we want an accurate result. Because what's the usual return on a survey? We get like 20%, we're probably doing well.
Yeah, it goes either way. Sometimes you see like really strong engagement depending on where it goes and you get a bunch of responses. So, but yeah, I would figure we probably, if we can get 1 to 200, I think that's, probably a good thought. I mean, I'm just looking here on the Willington Economic Development Facebook page, and I can see when you post on that, you can see the engagement. So we had, when we posted the Lots and More grand opening, we had about 600 engagements and it reached about 1,800 people through the feed on Facebook. So I think we can probably, if we can get it on Facebook, we can probably get it pretty widely shared.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, is this limited to Willington residents, or if so, how is it limited? It's not.
Nope. The first question, we ask what their relationship to the town is, just because, we may very well have people that are UConn students, or perhaps people that work at FedEx, or, something along those lines. So anybody can take it.
Okay. Item C, appointment of Chris Roberts as Assistant Land Use Agent.
So zoning regulations, or actually statutes, basically require that anybody who does work for the commission, if we're signing documents, issuing permits, notices of violation, whatever, the statutes require that the Planning and Zoning Commission authorize the manner in which that happens, which means appoint the person who works in lieu of the commission itself. So I was appointed when I started, and so we can get Chris appointed. He's been working on some of the complaint stuff with me and starting on some permit review and a whole bunch of other things. So I want to make sure that he is sort of properly knighted so that he can do all the fun stuff.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
I'll make a motion to appoint Chris Roberts as Assistant Land Use Agent. Welcome aboard, Chris.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
There, it's official, Chris.
I'm honored.
Welcome.
Be careful what you wish for.
That's right. Life sentence.
Yeah, right.
All right. Item D, approval of 2022 meeting schedule. You there, Mike?
Oh, sorry.
2022 meeting schedule.
Yep, does anybody want me to, I can actually just share it. You can
You
take a
can
look.
project it, that would be good. Share it.
Is it too small?
No, I see it.
Oh, that's good.
Looks good to me.
Yep. We're gonna
Yep.
continue with Zoom.
So we have it listed here that, based on, because as the way that statute is currently written, as of the end of March, virtual meetings go away. The statute, the way the law was written, they projected it out. I don't know if that was a middle ground or an oversight, but the way in which the budget implementer bill was passed, the virtual meeting stuff is included, and come April, we can't do it. So we have it listed at, the meetings will be at town hall unless otherwise specified. So that basically they can look to each agenda to figure out where the location will be.
I'm personally looking forward to that day when we can have them the way we used to.
Yeah, it's a little tricky when everybody has to wear masks, but I think we're getting closer.
All right, do we need to make a motion to approve those? Probably.
Please.
Someone
So
want to make
moved.
that motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Meeting schedule approved. Unfinished business, there isn't any. Approval of minutes for November 16th, 2021.
Hold on a minute, Walter. I need to abstain on those minutes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Joe Hall too.
okay. That still leaves us enough, I believe.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of November 16th, 2021.
Second.
All set.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions, that was Lori and
Me too.
Joe.
Yeah, me
All right.
too.
Okay. H, correspondence, Coventry Regulation Amendment Notification.
I just included this as it came from the town of Coventry. They, like us, when they do the planning and zoning regulation changes, if it's a regulation that affects essentially the whole town, we've got to notify. So this is the application package which came through, so I just provided it there to you. It's some tweaking to the dimensional requirements. There's nothing earth shattering, but it's correspondence.
Okay.
Okay.
Nothing we have to do with it unless you have any issues or concerns, and I suppose we could attend the public hearing.
All right, item I, public comment. The commission will hear brief comments at this time from anyone wishing to speak. No business can be conducted here, nor can any comments be made about any items on the agenda. Anyone from the public? Okay, guess not. Staff report and discussion, nothing tonight, Mike?
I don't have anything other than what we have gone over. I can give you just a quick update on Love's if you haven't been by there.
No, that would be great.
They've started the fuel canopy is up. They're working on, I believe they're now working on the installation of the SWAS. You'll see the road construction is very much underway. Overall, and it almost at this point is like after such a long time in the hopper, it seems like there should be something, but I haven't had any complaints. We haven't had any issues of any kind related to violations. or deviations from the approved plan. We haven't had any issues with erosion and sedimentation controls failing. We haven't had any problems with them paying for the clerk of the works. We haven't had any issues with them not addressing any questions or comments related to what our clerk of the works is asking, or if there's something that comes up. And I spoke with the building official today, and you know, his interactions have been fine. They haven't had any issues. The work's been good. You know, a lot of times with commercial projects, they'll call to schedule a footing inspection because they think they're going to be ready Wednesday just to get it on the books, and then you show up and they're not. They haven't really had too much of that, so it's been pretty quiet on that front. It's moving right along as planned.
Who is the clerk of the works?
So the Loves has Fuss and O'Neill on site on their end every single day. And then we have CHA doing basically ENS review, stormwater grading, and looking at sequencing and the SWAS.
What is CHA? Sorry, I'm probably out of touch.
They're an engineering firm.
All
But so when we went out to bid, one of the inspectors has an additional stormwater and another type of certification that the other submissions didn't have. And particularly with the SWAS and the drainage for this site, we wanted to make sure we had someone that would know what they were looking at when they saw it in the field.
How has your interaction been with CHA? Pretty good? You trust them? You think they know what they're talking about?
Yeah, across the board, we have had no issues. It's been, so I think I mentioned, but maybe I was talking to wetlands. So every week, FUS does an inspection report every single day. At the end of the week, they provide me with all of their inspection reports, which include photos and everything that's going on. When CHA is on the property, they provide an inspection report, and we basically have a OneDrive, exactly like our meeting stuff, and everybody shares everything there so that CHA can see all of the inspection reports that FUS is doing. And we're kind of all sharing the information because they're really large documents. So we have not had any problems. And so I've asked them to spend more time on site for the construction of the SWAS, because we weren't able to get a wetland site walk visit together with sunset and everything else, but it's been good.
That's got to be pretty helpful for them, though, having Fuss and O'Neill there every day in terms of keeping things compliant.
Yeah, it's been a good fit, because if you know, I know early on we had some concerns about, there was an area of slope which was having some water basically just bleed out of the slope because we got all that rain. And so CHA can say, you need to fix this. And with FUS being on site, FUS can actually say, this is what you need to do. You know, they can figure out the solution together, and then the site guys can make it happen. And so it all can happen that same day, rather than having to contact some engineer sitting in an office, you know, in another town, and have them work something up on a plan. And next thing you know, 3 days have gone by and we've had 6 inches of rain.
No,
That's good.
it is good. In fact, it's real good. A lot of work went into that. And I wonder, is there any way to sort of herald that to, you know, this was a contentious, not a contentious decision, but there's a lot of people, particularly the residents in that area, that were, you know, quite opposed to it. And I think we can understand why. Is there any way to sort of herald that, the work that has gone into that, and what the town has done to make sure that, you know, everything is compliant with the current regulations, whether we believe in those regulations or not? That's what we adhere to. I think it would be good to be able to sort of market that. That's a terrible word, but that's what comes to mind.
I think that we have had some people reach out and ask questions, you know, about various components or just, you know, general inquiries, and being able to tell them that the town has a representative on the property that can shut the job down if there's any issues. And we haven't had to, is I think it shows that we've done our due diligence. And honestly, in a couple of other towns, and I'm all over the place. And when I talk about this idea that the developer for a large project would pay for the town to have a non-biased representative on site is shocking to a lot of other towns. This concept is, I have never seen it implemented anywhere else. And everybody that I've sort of told about, to your point, is sort of like,
Well, maybe we could talk about that we did hear the residents' concerns, and we did put them in our hearts, and we said, if you want to do this, this is what you got to do. And by golly, they said yes.
Well, there were a lot of conditions that were discussed when we were going through this whole thing. And like, I think we did a relatively good job as a commission at trying to address the residents' concerns. And
I think so.
and even when it became apparent this project was going to happen and it wasn't going to be stopped, we still wanted to make sure, that things didn't get out of hand.
I think that should be somehow highlighted. Put that up in lights somewhere.
Yeah, press release.
I'm just glad it's going well and that, you're not getting complaints.
Any of the people that we dealt with, did they ever show up again? Have you ever heard from them? Were they just talking heads, or were they?
No, there's people that put things up on like Willington Friends and Neighbors that were opposed.
No, I know that. No, I mean,
as they have a right to.
But I mean, the people that we met with from Loves, do they ever show up again? Or were they just corporate?
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
Good.
So
They're involved. See, that matters to me. I think that's important to know.
So the main sort of person, the point of contact for Loves Corporate was Rick Sheffield.
Yes.
I think he had sort of a southern accent.
I remember him.
Yep. So he worked with us on the Clerk of the Works agreement. He is the one who approves all of the payments for the checks. If I have an issue, I call him directly.
That's great. And that's kind of a fundamental thing, is the owner directly involved. I mean, if that's the level that they put into it, I think that's probably a good thing.
Well, I think that.
Whether we agree with the project or not is irrelevant.
I think that speaks volume for the company.
I think so.
Yeah, it absolutely. Absolutely.
We were trying to get a site walk together for wetlands, as I mentioned, and they were actually going to fly someone in from Oklahoma City to meet with the commission. It didn't pan out, but I was actually thinking about that, Andy. How do we let, particularly smaller towns that don't have 5 town engineers, that, how do we let them know that if for one reason or another, for example, I think it's a town closer to the casino that is tiny town again, big development. How do we let them know that there's this potential process by which they can have a professional person at no cost to the town?
Go ahead and ask for it. Make it one of your conditions and see what. All they could do is say, no, I'm sorry, we're pulling out, but that's not likely. Once they buy the property and they do all this stuff, that's really not that. I mean, it's not a pittance, but it's rolled into the cost of business.
They have to know.
Not a huge amount of it. It's not a huge percentage of the total cost of the project, and it probably makes everybody happy. I don't know. Some way we should be able to talk about that.
I suspect that by the time this is all done, looking at the invoices and kind of where we are in the project, this is not a $50,000 endeavor.
Oh, no.
It is probably going to be a significantly cheaper, than that. But yeah, how can a small town like Hampton or Basra know that if they get a massive project that, for 1% of the project total budget, the developer can pay for this and bring the town's comfort level up significantly.
An engineer from an engineering firm for, let's say, 8 months, that's well over 200 grand. On site every day.
Yeah.
Writing reports, that's expensive proposition, unless the people doing the construction are paying for it, like in this case.
Yeah. for us, our billing starts basically at the end of July. Because we had our sort of first pre-construction meeting right at the start of August. So, I mean, we're basically billed out all the way through into the end of October. And we're like $15,000 is what the cost has been so far. That is a penny to Loves, who, to be able to have this process moving forward in that way, and for the town to be comfortable. I mean, the DEP is on board as well. They wanted that, so it's not a significant amount of money to them.
Well, it seems to be working, which is good news. Another thing I wanted to bring up, Mike, other than Loves, any further news on Automatique with the mess
Yes.
over there? It's still there. It's still a mess.
Yes, so the complaint went out by Marshall, and it's essentially waiting for return of service. So I think the third week of December is where someone has to basically enter an appearance in it. So it'll be at the courthouse in Rockville.
Okay. Be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, it's obviously, I won't put it as part of the agenda, but if any of you are interested in actually reading a copy of the complaint, we can either review it during the executive session, or I can provide you with a copy individually. The complaint filed by Howard and Sage.
I would like to have a copy of that,
Yeah, I'd like to see it too.
Okay,
because, this is going on a long time now. We've had complaints from our residents. The place is obviously an eyesore when you ride by it.
okay. So if most of you are interested, when we get the return of service date and get all that back, I can.
Executive
put it on the
session,
next-
you want to?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
That would be good.
All right, anything else?
That's all I can think of, unless anybody has anything for me.
All right, it is 8:23 PM, meeting adjourned. Good seeing
Yes.
everyone. Have a good week.